So
Hello.
we got Game of Thrones. We don't
We
want
have
to spend too much time.
perspective, I think. Like,
Uh, I feel like we have somewhat similar perspectives, but then
well,
different on
well,
others.
what I mean is, in terms of it, you as a watcher, I don't remember when you started, but like you essentially watched the show like episode to episode
I
almost.
started season 3, I believe.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
so a good chunk of the show you watched episode to episode
yeah,
essentially,
correct.
whereas I watched basically the whole thing 1.5 times. Um,
Yes.
Yeah, where I watched half of the show slash read it, and over the course of 2 weeks, I watched the entirety of the show again.
Now the fact that Joe read it also adds another layer to this, where he
Mhm.
had book expectations and didn't like some characters because of the book portrayals versus the TV
Yeah,
portrayals.
and
Meanwhile, I only had the TV.
in addition, like because like I watched like half the show, and then all the podcasts I listened to, like they watched Game of Thrones, so they would just spoil it, and I just kind of became passive to it. So I was like, I won't care.
Uh huh.
So I got to rewatch everything with these spoilers in mind, and like, um, and you saw everything as it unfolded.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think that becomes a very interesting perspective because I already know what's going to happen. So that allows me to
Prepare and look out for
prepare
things.
and essentially like we mentioned this before, but like I get to see the bomb in the room before anyone else does.
Yes.
Um, and I think that's kind of the reason why for me Game of Thrones is a lot lower ranked for me than it is for you. Uh,
It's it's not like super high for me, but I'd still put it high even with
season
season
eight
8.
not counting or anything, but like
Okay, yeah, yeah.
like just like in terms of my enjoyment of it, like
That
I
makes
just.
sense.
Mhm. And I should preference that my personal opinion about spoilers is I think don't spoil anything for anybody, but a spoiler doesn't should like if you're writing a story and you have something in that hinges on this one plot point not being known to the viewer or else it ruins the whole story, then I don't think your story is particularly solid. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Because
I'm the
you
same.
yeah, you're then just putting in shock value for shock value and you're not providing a point as to why that moment happens.
There's a really good video by Super Eye Patch Wolf, which is the dream guest of the podcast. Please
Yeah.
bless us, John. Where he talks about spoilers and spoiler culture, and I pretty much align with it. Where for me, a spoiler doesn't ruin the show. It gives you a different. You don't get to have the surprise, but
Hmm.
you get to have a different enjoyment. Where, like Joe was saying, you get to see the bomb tick down.
Yeah.
If it's a properly good written show.
Hmm.
And even then, event spoilers are less of a deal than emotional spoilers, I feel like. Where, like, if you told me a character's arc and you spoil the arc, I
Yeah.
would be more likely to be sad at that than you telling me that, by the
Like,
way, spoiler alert for Game of Thrones, all seasons, that in the Red Wedding, everyone dies, you
yeah.
know? I'd. If you spoiled, like, Jamie's full arc, that would hit me harder than
Yeah.
an event.
Because you get to see that character grow. And I think that's like, I can, like, spoilers already. Like, I can tell you that Jamie and Cersei die in Red Keep holding on to each other, but that doesn't ruin the character development that he goes throughout the entirety of the series. Uh,
Hmm. We'll talk about that.
well, but it also does because
It super does.
yeah,
It's realistic but also unfulfilling.
yeah,
Okay, how do we want to structure this? This is going to be our final Game of Thrones episode unless Bradley watches it.
and
Um,
then I'll be kind of, I won't be as enthusiastic to talk about it. I think
yeah, it'll go way faster in the
like
future.
if
Where
Bradley read it, I would 100% jump back on like reread the books with him because I think the books have so much depth to them that they are like I think I told my dad this. I don't know if I told you, but the second book in the series is like one of my top five books of all times.
hey,
It's so good.
um,
But yeah,
I think if Bradley watched it, I wouldn't rewatch it, but I'd still add some conversation in
yeah,
there.
I agreed.
Um, so should we go through like every season and give our overall thoughts and then just finish off with the last season? Because this is the big spoiler cast, I guess.
Yeah. So how about the way we do this is we put seasons 1 through 6 as its own thing. We discuss those,
Okay.
and then the last two seasons we discuss separately because maybe even bump it down to like 1 through 5, because 1 through 5 is essentially
book
pace by
stuff.
pace for the book, with some exceptions in 5, and then 6, 7, and 8 are all
Okay, we can
written.
play it that way.
Yeah,
Um,
written by D&D and whatever.
though I think we should talk about then each of those seasons as their own separate thing because shit changes so much
Yeah.
in those last three. But okay, those first five seasons. At that point, Game of Thrones is a top three TV show for me. It's not as good as Breaking Bad, but it's probably like third or second. Um, just the characters, the writing, the world, the dialogue, it's all on point. The actors are phenomenal. That's a big part where like you might not care about the TV show
And
because there's less written depth, but the stuff they do visually and with the music is just also powerful. That like
as a show, like uh like like in terms of uh, partially direction, cinematography, and acting wise, it's like top tier phenomenal. Like it's
it's even in
amazing.
the later seasons, like
Yeah.
you can always say that except for Battle of Winterfell, everything is super well shot and acted and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, got Daenerys, and like the her last like big speech she gives was crazy. Like
Yeah,
she that woman like acted her heart out, and it was great.
she learned acting through this show.
Yeah.
She even says this, like she started so new.
Hmm.
Um,
But
so
yeah.
um,
So seasons 1 through 5, um, for me, seasons 1 and 2 were very good. I really enjoyed them. Season 3, because it shifts its focus to Catelyn and Rob, I really had less of an interest in it because they weren't my favorite characters, and that's more of a personal thing for me. Like they
yeah,
just don't interest me. Um, with uh, season 4 was with Joffrey dying and and it's pretty interesting. And I really like season 5 compared to you, Willer,
yes, you
because I
do.
really like the sept plot of it.
Ugh. We'll,
Yeah.
we'll talk about it later. Hold on, let's back it up. So, season one, I feel like I like less than most people. Where I don't think that season is particularly interesting, especially on a first watch, and it's still on a second watch still a bit harsh until
I
episode
agree.
6. Whenever Ned finds out that um, Joffrey and Tommen and Mary, who's the other
Marcella.
Marcella, are Jamie's children. I couldn't get a feel for what this show was going to be
Yeah.
and what I should care about. There were so many characters introduced to you right off the bat.
Hmm.
The world is already so rich from the start, which is a positive, but it makes the plot all the more muddled. But as soon as he figures that out and he's confronting Cersei and Littlefinger is starting to become more of a player, that's when the show takes a hold and it rides that out for the rest of the season. So the first half of the season, I don't have any particular feelings for, and the second half I really like, so I'd probably give it like a 4.
And that's how it is, I think, in the books, if I'm remembering correctly. Like they kind of dick around in Winterfell for a long time, and they go on the King's Road and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and it really doesn't pick up, and like it's like, oh, this is a series about political intrigue and politics
Yeah.
and stabbing,
It,
and like
it's
Ned.
weird because you only retroactively start to care about stuff where it's like, I don't care that this Jon Snow went to the Night's Watch. This means nothing to me. And
Mhm.
then when you're like in season 2 or 3, you look back on it, it's like, man, that's a big deal and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
and that's always a problem with fantasy novels, and why I don't like to read them as much, because it's like it's hard to make a character the dumb character that has to be like taught everything in this world,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah, that's true. You need someone to feed
that's why guys
exposition
are so
to.
popular, because you can make this world and then you have a go-to default character that doesn't know anything about this world.
Yeah.
I think The Witcher does it best, in my opinion, where you have the opposite, where the person you're following is literally a walking encyclopedia about everything in this world,
And he's
basically.
teaching people around him.
Yes.
Hmm.
So that way, like, not only do you have this character that's a badass and knows everything, and it's believable to know everything, you also get these moments of interjection where he's talking to a peasant. He's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. It's like, all right, let me explain it to you. And he explains the monster and whatever.
And he also explains it to the viewer. Um
Yeah. And, yeah.
but
But you don't learn that way. But yeah.
But
But
like I
I
said,
agree.
that second half very strong.
Yeah.
Ned getting killed, big moment in television.
Mm,
That's when people get sold on this show.
yeah. Which also kind of tells you is also kind of shows weakness is that everyone's looking for that episode 9 like plot twist point
Yeah,
essentially. And it kind of it's really telling that if that's what you're like leaning against the whole time, you don't have a really strong structure. I feel like
people really
climaxes are
want deaths in Game
yeah.
of Thrones and that kind of stuff.
hmm But also when Ned dies, I remember reading the book. It clicked a switch in my brain where it's like, okay, I can't look at these characters as like I can't get overly attached to these characters anymore. I have to look at them more as pieces on the board and how their actions affect the other actions of other characters or other world events. Does that
Well,
make sense?
yeah, I'm very proud of young Joe for figuring that out because I feel like for me and most people, that doesn't
hmm
actually click until season 3
Uh, and
in the
and
Red Wedding.
yeah, no, and it definitely, and I think it's better. The second book is so good because you only are told events through unreliable sources,
Right.
essentially. So you have to kind of piece. So you go back to the chapter where you see it leading up to this event, and then you read the next chapter that tells you the aftermath of the event, and you have to piece together what actually happened.
Damn. That's
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Um,
But
but that doesn't matter because it's a TV show. And we have to see everything.
yeah.
Um, but for me that's when the show is interesting where you have to like start looking at like an actual game and there's like chess pieces and everything on the board and you have to see where everyone's moving and seeing how they will collide and what that event means for everyone else.
Yeah, and that really clicks with me eventually, but not initially.
hmm
So, season 2, season 2 is the one I remember the least specifics of except for the Battle of Blackwater, but I remember liking it a lot.
yeah,
Um is this the one where Jamie is with Brienne?
this is the one where she is I think where he is mostly captured by Catelyn and is released at the end of this season.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
Okay, bad season for Jamie.
yeah.
What's
Well, this
Tyrion
is
doing again? He's the
what'd you say?
hand. Tyrion's the hand at this point. Yeah.
Tyrion's the hand, which is my favorite part of the whole show because
hmm
that part really solidifies like Cersei is like it really solidifies crazies Cersei's motivations and what she wants, why who Joffrey is, Sansa's plight, like everything in King's Landing
Ah,
is so gold
King's
to me.
Landing plot is really good because it also has Tywin and Arya, right? As she's
No,
like,
Tywin's out like doing the other part of the war because he's trying to
oh,
get Jamie back because he's trying to like pin down Robb Stark, but he
right,
can't.
right, right.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, that was a really good season too.
you also have like Renly and fucking Sir Loras and
Mhm.
Stannis
It
and
introduces Renly and Stannis, which I really Stannis is my favorite character of the show for a long time,
Mhm.
um, because in all of out of all of these characters, he's the most duty bound because he was promised a the he wasn't promised the throne, but he was promised something by Robert, and he held down Storm's End, I believe. It's been
yeah
a long time.
he
He holds it down for days and weeks or possibly
not
months.
it's either Storm's End or Dragonstone or Harrenhal.
I want to
One,
say it's Dragonstone then.
yeah, it's Dragonstone.
Um,
Yeah, because he's based in fucking Dragonstone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That he's given that, even though he fought so hard for his brother,
Mhm.
and all he's that was his duty. He did his duty, and now that Robert is dead, he's coming down, and the throne is his, and his
Robert is
plot.
dead, and like rumors are spreading about Joffrey's heritage at
Yeah.
this point.
So he's like, I'm the heir, and you know what? I suffered. I did my part. Now it's my time to get my claim for the throne.
Right.
And I've just always liked his dry personality in contrast to all the really colorful ones. He's a dry personality that works really well for me.
And he
And it's
he
fun to
fought
watch him get manipulated by Melisandre. I actually really like her and how she plays him and all that.
I and it's funny because you mentioned duty, but that kind of like ties into like something that's told to John by I think is it Aemon or is it Jorah Mormont?
I think it's
Or
Mormont at this point.
yeah, where it's like love's the death of duty,
Mm-hmm.
and that comes back later for Stannis, like in one very very
Yes.
rough scene Oof.
Ooh, that was Amon then that said love is the death of duty because they bring it up in the finale.
Yeah,
But yeah, that. Oh, people say that's character assassination, but I'm like, no, it makes sense.
yeah,
It's just brutal.
yeah.
um, On to season 3, which you don't like as much as me. I think season 3 and 4 are peak Game of Thrones. Both are 5 out of 5s.
Yeah.
But I liked Rob and Catelyn, so that explains that. I really like Jamie and Brienne.
Jamie's very good. Like
Um,
Jamie's that character where you're like, this guy's a fucking asshole. Especially like in the second season, because he literally strangles his cousin to death to break out of jail.
yes.
And like you really do not like this guy. And like by the end of season 3, you're like, I kind of get where Jamie's coming from.
By the end of season 3, he's a top 3 character for me. Where
Yeah.
that scene with him and Brienne in the bath, where he's talking about the burden he had to take by killing the Mad King, is just so powerful, and it shows so much depth to his character. Where there's more to him than Cersei. He did it because he thought it was right to save the innocents, which he disregarded in season
and
8.
and Jamie is like, I feel like, is the poster boy for what people say they like about the show, and the writers don't understand what that actually is.
So you're saying like a complex character
Well,
who is kind of morally bad.
Jamie, if you took like a very like far back look at it, Jamie is essentially the quintessential knight in shining armor, best swordsman, totally handsome. Everyone like loves him, or not everyone loves him, but like he's
Very
Prince.
popular character.
Yeah. But then when you zoom in on him, like you find out that he has sex with his sister. He's kind of like, he's pretty egotistical on his own like prowess, but he also, even though he does care about for protecting other people, and like that there is this nugget of him that like will sacrifice like his own honor to protect the citizens, even though he knows that damns him for life essentially.
Yeah.
And and so that ends up painting him in a worse light for everyone else, but at the same time he's doing what we expect knights to do, which is do the right thing.
And this is the season then that also has Arya and Tywin, right? So I was wrong. It was in this season.
Arya and Tywin.
Yeah.
No.
Where she's like his servant.
That's season 2.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because Tywin's in Harrenhal and then rides out to King's Landing to relieve King's Landing.
Yes. The raw plot line is you get fooled for a second because it's so romantic, and then you're brought back to reality where it's like, no, you have to break oaths to get this romance, and that does not fly in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So I really like that season. Red Wedding's a great moment in television.
Yeah.
Very what the fuck. Any other good plot lines? We haven't talked about Dany at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I'll also to say about the Red Wedding. The Red Wedding is also the first point where the show really diverges from the books. Because like the Red Wedding happens and you see Catelyn die, but at the very end of that book, it's revealed that she is alive.
Yeah, she's Lady Stoneheart or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, and she's part of the Brotherhood Without Banners, which has its own implications later. And so it's just kind of like, so that already diverges.
See, but that's the fanfic book. We're talking about the canon shit show of the show. So,
I'm saying like that's kind of like where like things start diverging. That's just like a decent point to point that out, I feel.
Yeah, I've heard of this one.
Yeah.
Dany, up to this point, I liked her arc. But it's that
season 1 is so fucking good, and in book 1, like the things she has to go through and deal with, and
her rise,
it's great and it's empowering. Like it feels awesome.
I also like her march to free the slaves. What I don't like is this is the season is it this season or next season where she stays in Meereen and rules?
So in season 2 she's in Karth and she deals with the warlocks. So in season 3 she gets to Meereen, she marches to Meereen and she frees the slaves.
Yes.
And I realized this after I finished this show. I was thinking about it. I think I mentioned to you this, is that the Meereen plot needed to be shortened and she needs to come to
Westeros. Like in season 5.
Yeah, or something. Because so we're gonna just let the point for Marine to me is to tell Danny that it's really fucking hard to rule an actual kingdom.
Yes.
Like you can't win over everybody, and she has to learn that.
This I appreciate. It just went for a long time, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a very important character moment where she has to definitively sit on one side or the other. She can't actually please everybody. And she ends up learning that at the very end of season 6 or something like that. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, and you're just like, and she's there for a long time. Um, and it feels way too long, which is funny because the other seasons are way too short for her character development.
Yeah, for how important that other half of it is.
Yeah.
Let's move on to 4. 4 is my favorite season of the show.
4 is really good.
Joffrey's death. Sansa is with Littlefinger.
Yeah.
For most of the season.
Viper versus the Mountain. We're introduced to, like, the Dorne.
Yeah. The Dorne gets introduced, and it's actually interesting at this point.
Yeah.
The Night's Watch is gearing up. Jon has already met Ygritte, and he's already had a connection with the North.
Yeah.
So the war, the big battle of the season is the Night's Watch versus the Wildlings, right?
That's not Harrenhal, Homeward, or...
No, I think you're thinking of Hardhome, but that's season 5.
Oh, is it?
This is the one where the Wildlings march to the wall.
That's right. It's the Siege on the Wall.
Yes.
Is that season 4? I thought that was season 3. No, it's season 4.
I want to say it's 4, yeah. Because at the end of it, Stannis shows up, saves everyone. Why did he do that again? That's what I don't remember.
Because he loses Blackwater Bay, which means he has no force.
Yes.
So Melisandre tells him, well, if you go north, you can probably get the wild. She predicts you can win over wildlings,
right?
Your army.
Yeah, and he beats them, and he tries to get Mance to surrender, but he doesn't. So he kills Mance. And this is him. He lost that play, so this is him spiraling into more despair, and he has to grasp at more straws. Dany's plotline not very good at this point. It's still good, but like
in season 4,
she started ruling at this point.
Yeah, and the Sons of the Harpies show up.
Yeah, but the Sons of the Harpy aren't annoying until season 5.
Yeah.
Anything else that's notable that's going on? Arya's journey.
Brienne fights the Hound, doesn't she?
Yes, Brienne and Arya are together this season, right?
No, Brienne finds Arya and the Hound, and then
Arya and the Hound, which is a really good relationship.
Yeah.
And at this point, I think everyone loves Arya. At like season 3 and 4 is peak Arya times.
I
everyone
agree.
Loves her.
Seasons 3 and 4 are peak Arya, and Arya kind of goes up.
Yeah, this is very important to say because next season is the season where I start hating her. So, yeah, just not to linger on it too much. I really like season 4. It's definitely my favorite.
I like that fight between Brienne and the Hound, because the Hound finally fights someone that's like willing to go the lengths to win a fight.
Yeah,
because all the other people that he fights,
they're scared.
Yeah, they fight very honorably, and they fight like knights should. Brienne's like, fuck you, I'm biting your goddamn ear off.
But he also fights those scumbags when he's traveling with Arya, so that's not fully true. He fights some scumbags.
Well, I mean,
some
like,
Lannister boys,
of, like a knight, like on the level that they should be at to fight the Hound. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like those are just schmucks. Like Arya kills them.
So let's go into season 5. Arya's plotline is terrible in the season.
That's when she goes to Bravos, right?
Yes, and she does her training, which doesn't amount to anything, and she gets stabbed 10 times, and she just leaves at the end.
6.
Was that in season 6?
Was it in season 6?
I think her whole training wrapped up.
No, it was
No, she's trying to start her training. That was really frustrating.
Most of it, at the end she ends up killing Walder Frey.
Yes, but season 5 has that beginning portion which I really didn't like.
Mm-hmm. It feels like you're like beating around the bush and you're running around like they're just killing time, and you're like, it's not going anywhere.
That is what I remember thinking about it.
Yeah.
I don't like the High Sparrow plotline. I know you do. I thought it was very frustrating to sit through.
Oh, I loved it because all this time Cersei is trying to manipulate people, and she's been very successful at it. And then she's like, this fucking Marjorie Tyrell, bitch, is fucking my son, and I don't like it.
God, Marjorie's so good. We haven't gotten to talk about her yet, but
Yeah.
she played the game so well. She would have been the best queen in the whole
And
show
then
because
so Cersei has to come out and like she's like, I'm gonna do this thing, and it's really gonna fuck her, but ends up shooting herself in the own and herself in the foot, which is great.
also her old lover comes back and now he's converted and
Yeah,
um
Lance,
this ends with
who I don't think is the same actor.
it's not. I can't be.
Okay.
He looks so different.
He's like ripped.
He got big in his
Yeah.
religious village pilgrimages. This season ends with her escaping like her captivity, right?
Does the shame walk?
She does the shame walk. That was like the one of the climaxes of the season.
Yeah, and that's like the last event in the 5th book, I think.
The Night's Watch is dealing with Stannis, and then he leaves, and they accept the wildlings, and they have Hardhome, which is arguably the best action scene in the series.
Yeah. I think I'm with you on that.
It's between that or Battle of the Bastards for me.
I didn't enjoy Battle Bastards as much. Hardhome had that. I mentioned this when we were talking about in game, but I really like it when a battle has some sort of meta kind of
Yeah.
attachment to it, other than sieges, because I think like castle sieges have their own kind of cool effects to it. Like I like Battle of Blackwater Bay, but this one had the whole like we have to get everyone on the boat, we got to get the boats out, we have
That
to,
was a
like,
good objective, yeah.
yeah. So you have these not only your heroes fighting for their lives, but you also have them. You have this additional stake of we have to do this other thing.
And it drops the bombshell of the Night King raising all of the dead that fought in that battle, and that was such a good moment. It really sold them as a threat,
and really, it also shows there's a difference between White Walkers and actual just like zombies or whites, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
And really kind of points out like this is why the babies were so important.
And John 1v1's one of the commanders, and it's a tough ass fight. Like, he was a real big threat.
Not that it matters in the end.
Not that it matters in the end. This is why I'm bringing it up. It's continuity. I have better continuity than D&D. Let's talk about Bran. We haven't talked about him yet, and this is a good time to touch on him. Bran early on is one of my favorite characters and has the most interesting plot line for me.
Yeah. So to me, and it kind of really shows if you watch the entirety of the show as quickly as I did, you realize that Bran and Daenerys have the least amount of screen time, like in terms of like their plots.
Seriously, I feel like they have the most importance. Where every season, I'm like Daenerys and Bran are like the most guaranteed last season survivors because their plot lines are so important. I feel like.
Which doesn't matter.
Doesn't.
But to me that kind of solidifies from like as I was watching this, like they don't know what Dany and Bran are supposed to be ultimately leading to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Wow. You know what? You're super right.
Because when you have such little screen time, your events should be very important.
Yeah.
But with the exception of like Bran in season whenever he's in the tree, I think that's 6.
That's season 6, but season 5 is him traveling with the two people he met. I forgot their names.
Jojen
one of them is
Marine.
Yes, and who he met in season 3 after he went north of the wall in season 2. So he's had a big journey to get here, and he has to get to this tree, and he gets there, and it's finally the culmination of this character where it's like, every time we see this character, he's making slow progress. Meanwhile, Daenerys, like, they freeze Daenerys in place to give her life lessons, but they just, like, give Bran a constant progress. It's just super slow. Because, like you said, they don't really know what they're doing. Right. So he gets to the tree.
Bran's the biggest one, I think, that no one knows what it's supposed to be.
God, it could have been so much. It's the biggest disappointment of the show, I think. Like, number one.
I agree with you. I don't agree with you where it should have gone, but I agree with you that it's the biggest disappointment in the show.
If it would have gone anywhere, that's at least something. But okay, season 5, not a fan. What are some other big plot lines in it? Jon gets killed at the end.
Jon gets stabbed, which is ironic.
And and Stannis. This is not the season where Stannis. Okay, it is.
Yeah, I think so.
I thought it was 6. Man, so Stannis murders the child now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like Stannis. Yeah, Stannis kills his child and then tries to take Winterfell and then loses
No, that.
because the beginning of season 6 is Melisandre and Davos being like, we have to wake Jon up because that's the whole plot.
Yep. Okay, you're right. That's how it went, and
Yeah.
that's what gave Bolton a rise to power. So now let's talk about Bolton
Oh yeah.
and Theon. Right.
Oh man,
So
Theon has probably the best arc because
Theon's arc is fantastic, and you've told me how it's also interesting in the book because we don't get to see that it's with Reek is Theon for a while, which is pretty fun.
yeah, and Theon's arc is the most like predictable in
But
terms
it's
of
just
like
well written, you know.
yeah, and like you can see like oh this is what his arc is supposed to be, like his redemption arc and of such.
And it is the one arc that is 100% fulfilled, I
Yeah,
think, by season 8.
yeah, that moment like at the end, it feels so good because you're like, all right, I'm happy where Theon is in his journey. It's at an end, but like I feel satisfied for it. But yeah,
So Ramsay Bolton is a really good villain to hate. We didn't talk about Joffrey either. Joffrey is really good. Let's just
I
get
think
that
the
out
thing
there.
about Joffrey is like Joffrey is nothing there, not nothing, but he's there to provide direct conflict for Tyrion
And Sansa.
and Sansa, and kind of really and there's another theme to this show that or to the books that I feel like the show does an okay job of at the beginning of the series, and then really falls off in doing it by the end of it, and then tries to call back to it later in the very last episode, and it's just like okay. Um, but I'll get to that after we kind of go through every season, which is taking a long time.
Yes, it
Uh,
is. But we're also getting some characters out of the way.
yeah, but
Um, uh,
Ramsey,
Ramsay's OP. He's Euron. He's Euron, but more enjoyable.
he is. I agree with you, and
Him and his good men just burn all of Stannis' troops.
yeah, he takes 20 dudes out, and his dogs are invincible apparently.
Um, yeah, but you love like he gets an emotion out of you, and it is a genuine emotion. And he, when he's not being OP, he is
With
working for it, and he's got
Ramsey
a
at his
backstory.
best, Ramsey was at his best when he was torturing Theon,
Yeah.
which is weird to say.
But when he's torturing Sansa, that's also really good. Which season 6, Sansa's with Theon, or sorry, well, yeah, she's with Theon and Ramsay,
Yeah,
and she's getting her life lessons in this season, and it's really rough to watch.
yeah.
Um,
That doesn't
John,
happen, by the way, in the books. She's fine. She doesn't get raped or anything, but that's like 100% D&D written, if I remember
I
correctly.
feel like it's so important for her character, though. I feel like it might still happen.
It may be, but like it, she's still with Littlefinger at this point. But I think they're
Uh,
yeah,
hmm.
yeah. But go
Um, uh, let's talk about Sansa real quick. She's had a really good character arc at this point, in my
I'll go
opinion.
from yeah. So Sansa went from I hate this bitch to goddamn Sansa's amazing. Sansa to me is like what everyone loves about Daenerys, but is actually like good. Does that
And
make sense?
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
she by the end of the show, even in the last 3 episodes, she didn't get to do much, but she was probably my favorite character at the end of the show,
Because you really feel like she has grown powerful
and
like,
naturally and
yeah.
forcefully, but not like you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Any other good thing? So I don't like season 5 very much, but I do like 6. I don't like the Arya stuff too much, but at this point, I don't really like Arya in general, which is a controversial thing to say.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
like all the other plot lines.
I mean, when Arya gets stabbed like 4 times in the gut, and
Yeah.
it's just
She's just a little murder boner child at this point. It's just edgy, popular girl.
mhm.
Battle of the
I didn't
Bastards,
look at this,
fantastic.
but she has the almost like Bran's ability in the books to go warg. Like she can see through her wolf's eyes and everything.
That's weird.
Yeah, like so, like just to show like how much more different like the books and crazier they get.
So with Bran,
Yeah,
they start doing all these cool flashbacks with him that don't lead up to anything. Really disappointing. Just in general, I shouldn't say it much because like there's only so much I can say, but he is the most drop ball in the show, and anything involving him. And also, it's weird because the three-eyed raven before him had a personality.
yeah.
Why the fuck couldn't Bran keep his personality? That would have made him such a better character.
I agree. And
Anyways,
it really been a much better character arc where it's like, all right, you're a boy now, and now you're God. Deal with that, and he has to like struggle with the ability. Like, it's like, how do I balance myself of these powers and everything?
Maybe he did off screen, and the end result is boring, staring off
But
into
that's
nothing. Brand.
oh god, it's so uninteresting when you don't see that struggle. Like, it's okay
Yes,
if he comes to that, like with
it could be
Daenerys.
tragic. Even wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Um. All right. So season 7.
Season 7.
Well,
I like
well,
this
wait,
season
the
more
last
than
thing
you.
that happens in season 6 is probably is which I was really blown away with because I thought it was terrifically shot and executed was Cersei blowing up the set.
Beautiful.
It
God,
was like
it took her all season to do it.
mm-hmm.
I forgot about that. I thought it was earlier.
No,
Tom and Suicide's really good too.
yeah, and like it feels and like the way it's shot and
The
the way like,
music.
you think that you're seeing her prepare for this trial that she's already at, and she's like looking out the window, and you think she's like uh contemplating about what's going to happen when really she's just waiting for the bomb to go off, and it's great.
Rest in peace, Marge.
God, Queen of Cleveland.
She's so good. Yeah, please. White Walker Marjorie still fine.
Uh,
Season 6 does not end with the Jon Snow thing. That's season 7. So season 7, Jon goes out to Dany. He needs her help to fight the Nightwalkers. This is a big preparation season.
That's underneath her fort and
Yes.
her men. But yeah,
Yes. That's it. He falls in love with her in like 3 episodes.
God, I hate that so fucking much.
Yeah, we needed more time.
Like it happens to Rob, but there are moments when you see Rob doing his thing and she's doing her thing. You're like, okay, I can understand why they are falling in love and why this is happening. Like it feels earned, but
like I feel like Daenerys is only falling in love because she could smell the Targaryen, and the incest is a plus for her.
yeah, and like it's just like and it's not like John and Danny have these moments where like they're sitting at a dinner table on this like pseudo date and they realize they have this really good banter and back and forth on each other. Every interaction they have with each other is literally business.
Yeah.
And like just about like I need you to help me out here.
Only if you bend the knee.
Yeah, and you're just
I
like,
will burn you,
my queen.
McQueen. We'll talk about McQueen later, but this season in general is just too fast for me. But I like what's happening. A lot of people don't like the plot line of bringing the White Walker in, and I don't like how they do it because it's so stupid. Where they go over the wall and Gendry has to run like 1,000 miles, and the Night King's just chilling, watching.
Yeah,
Really weirdly executed. That's my least favorite part of the season.
It's so weird because you showed me a video and he kind of expresses why I don't like the plot ultimately, and at the same time like I don't know what else you would do because I really like that scene they have when they bring the White in and Cersei gets scared and they realize this is real, like the fantasy stories are real.
And what's nice is also like that's a nice part of like I'll defend that about season 7 a lot is it has a lot of good characters coming together finally, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah,
and I agree, like that is a valid plan to show Cersei the reality of it, and Tyrion thought he could convince her. Now I don't know why he thinks he can convince her another 3 times.
yeah. The thing is too is like the other thing is like that episode is so plot armor heavy that it's kind of upsetting. Like I'm usually one that's like I don't like plot or whatever you need it for your characters, but this was like really like let's take every major player we have at the moment, just put them all in one spot and have
Let's not lose a single one.
Yeah, with the exception of the priest, but who gives a fuck about him? Like
Joe, surely it won't get worse than that.
yeah.
Another plot line is the Winterfell one. Sansa's is getting her power back as Jon is being a little bitch.
Jon gets crowned king of Winterfell or king of the North, but then immediately leaves to go get his dick wet.
And Sansa's like, "Well, I guess I will rule. I guess I've built up to this."
Mm-hmm.
Arya's kind of just like that plot line where Arya and Sansa are pretending to conspire against each other. That's also dumb.
That could have been much better executed.
Yeah. It needed that one needed more time, and it would have been good.
And like because I think the payoff would have been great. It just
Let's talk about Littlefinger.
Oh yeah.
All right, Littlefinger has been one of the best, most entertaining characters of the show so far.
Big fucking nerd.
he has really interesting motivations. He plays the game really well. He's really good at politics. The show stops being about politics in season 7, which isn't a problem because it's action time, you know.
Yeah, you've come to like right now, like it's the White Walkers are coming. Danny is here. Um, but
But either way, they didn't know what to
like
do with him.
explain my own like personal beliefs about like when Danny should have come in and what should have followed aside. Right, this is the time where like we had to start doing more actions and less like backroom meetings and discussions about chaos and whatnot.
And it means that Littlefinger has no place, and they kill him off really anticlimactically. And he's the character that started this whole goddamn show.
Mm-hmm.
It,
Yeah,
it all traces back to him. So,
yeah,
well, there you go.
and it really is. And I think the thing is we never so one character we never talked about is Varys, like at
Well,
all.
I was waiting for season 8. We'll bring up Varys.
Okay.
Varys is very similar, where he's very politics driven.
Uh-huh.
And we will talk about him in a second.
But I wanted to bring up that Varys and Littlefinger have very foilistic ideals. Or Varys the entire time, and you really don't get this until you see him go back to him to reveal that like I'm trying to set Danny up as the ruler of Westeros. That Varys is like I'm trying to pick the best person for the throne. I'm trying to get to where the best people are in power. That's why I trusted you, Tyrion. That's why I tried to like put you in the position you were.
Mhm.
But Littlefinger is I want to fuck Catelyn Stark, and I will do everything in my power to get into that position. If I can't fuck her, I'll fuck her sister, and then her daughter, and then someone else. Like
Woo.
that's his whole motivation. And like I can respect the man for getting his dick wet or whatever, but and kind of but they're foils. Like
Yes.
Littlefinger is doing it for a very selfish reason. Varys is trying to do it for the greater good.
Yes, and they have really fun conversations. Chaos
Yeah.
is a ladder, which
Yeah.
Bran is really good at one-liners. I'll say that. That's all he really has.
That's like the only time, the only moment that it felt so good, like in that whole segment of him finally dying. That like Bran is like I know who you fucking are. Like he knows everything. Like it feels good in that moment when he says it to him because Littlefinger's like I've only said that to one other person.
Let's ride this wheelchair of Bran into season 8 and talk about Bran in season 8.
Well, is there anything in season 7?
I think
No.
we talk about Winterfell. Oh, there's the Sand Snakes plot line. That's bad.
Oh yeah.
But there's a fun adventure, and we can talk about Bronn. I really love Bronn. He gets done really dirty in season 8.
It's fucking capped in season 8.
Character wise, character cap. Okay, they never utilize Bran, which
Yeah.
is really frustrating, and it really shows that D&D didn't know how to balance Bran, so they just decided to ignore him.
The
in
only
corner.
person that used Bran was fucking Sam, who was like, "Can you like validate this for me?" When he tells him to go back in time to like see Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark get married.
Yeah, which was a really good reveal that ends season 7.
Yeah.
As Jon is fucking his aunt. And then there's Tyrion decides to ask him, "What the hell are you?" And that plays into the finale. But
And that
they
conversation
never
should have been
use
more fleshed out. Like that should have been like
that should have been in the screen. That should have been fleshed out. Period. Not more
Yeah.
fleshed out.
yeah.
And it's just we've talked about Bran. He's the biggest disappointment. His story went nowhere. He just sat in the woods so the Night King could use him as bait. Nothing interesting happened between the two. Let's talk about the Night King. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So first off, the series is called A Song of Ice and Fire, and it relates to two things: dragons, the White Walkers, and Danny and John. Like
Yes.
that's the two things immediately that come to your mind. That's what they're about, and it blows my mind. Like I just don't get it. Because I'm speechless because the whole point of the show, the whole kind of background threat that's happening are these White Walkers. And the White Walkers are symbolize winter and symbolize death. That there's an inevitability of them coming. They are coming regardless of whether you want to or not.
And
like,
the idea is that all your quarrels and politics and all that, that's all useless in the face of death.
Yeah. Like That's like the one of the biggest themes of the show. It doesn't matter how much you plan. If you're dead, you're dead. Like
Yes.
it's it and like you're oh my god. I don't know like ultimately what they should have done because I can't tell you.
Here's an easy one. They they beat out the crew and drive them south, and that way you have a battle between the three factions, and Dany
Yeah.
can kind of like go on a rampage and kill her own soldiers, kill Lannister soldiers to get
Mhm.
to the Night King. Like you can tie that into turning Dany crazy. You can tie that into the two human factions having to work together and then betraying each other, which gets to both of the themes of the
And,
show.
and I agree with you on that. And like so so I for what how I pictured kind of like my bittersweet ending for the show. I feel like we also need to talk about Dany because she has the other thing that I
Yes.
knew was kind of going to happen.
Yeah, Mad Queen Dany definitely
Yeah,
foreshadowed, but way rushed.
yeah. Like, and so the video we watched, they talked about how they assassinated your character, and I can kind of see, yes, you're true on that, but it's also like you can see her. That's where she needs to end up, in the fact that like she is one of two apocalyptic events for Westeros, essentially.
Yeah,
Um, and so Danny coming in, destroying King's Landing is kind of like to me, like okay, it's fine. It's just the way they go about it and the way they get to that point is like, well, we have this really nice scenic route, or you can cut through the woods.
and the
And,
woods are ugly
yeah,
and barren.
and you can ding up your car, scratch the paint, maybe lose a wheel along the way, but you'll get
Maybe
there.
lose your show's entire pride, but
Yeah.
you'll get there.
Um.
Um,
And
so we've
yeah.
talked about our opinions on each episode of this season, so you know how we feel basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, Danny like justified, rushed, needed to be reworked.
And part of
Man,
that ties into the fact that of her, to me, like the way you structure this is Danny gets the Dragonstone, and John is preparing for the White Walkers, and they have, and essentially John gets crowned King of the North, and people rally behind him, and then like for one season, it's basically John talking to Danny, and Danny like, okay, I'll help you, I understand, and they have to campaign around the North, essentially trying to win Danny over to these people, essentially, like
sure.
um come to find out that everyone loves John. Like John's charismatic. They think he's great. They think he's like true king of the North or whatever. And Danny comes with the biggest reality shake in her life is that when she comes to Westeros, there are no slaves. There's no one really kind of being over like like oh god, I'm losing. Like
She
there's no
can't
one being
she can't be
over
the heroine she's always been
right.
because her only opponent is John the perfect boy.
Yeah, and like she's not a liberator. Like in fact to everyone else she's just another invader, like
Yes.
that's who she appears to be, and like to her that's a harsh reality she has to come with. Like I am not a like I'm not here to like free people from slavery or from evil warlocks or
I am just an
whatever.
invader.
Yes, you re-exiled your family, um and now you're coming back, and yes, everyone hates Cersei, but like Cersei wasn't really, at least from what I can remember, didn't really do anything to the common folk. The worst thing that happened while the Lannisters were in rule was Joffrey went around and killed a bunch of
Well,
babies.
she murdered a bunch of common folk when she exploded
That's
the
true. She
church.
also blew up the set, which I think,
But she was driven to a corner at that point, and it's
mhm,
not even close to what Danny did. And
right.
we can talk about Cersei real quick. I really like Cersei as a character, but by season 8, she was just a
She
person who
doesn't do
stares out a
anything.
window and smirks.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
I really like her character arc up till then. I really like how she maneuvers the way she plays the game is really
yeah.
fun and in contrast with her father, and it gives a lot of tension for Tyrion and gives Jamie a lot of mixed emotions and problems.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's just,
Jamie's became garbage, but we talked about that in a previous episode. Um, let's talk about the finale then, and we're gonna wrap up this Game of
well,
Thrones talk.
so sorry. Let me get back to what I thought would be my bittersweet ending or whatever it is.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so they go in, and so finally they have a sit down, and John is like, listen, we are not going to be able to win over Cersei and beat the White Walkers without Daenerys. That's not. That's a kind of final like ruling on him as like King of the North essentially. Like he has to essentially force people into like just accepting her, right? So before the Nightwalkers come, they have to go to Cersei and convince her, and that leads to them having the standoff in this battle. And Daenerys is just like, "Fuck it," and destroys King's Landing.
Right. There's no part with the surrendering bell. It is
Yeah.
like maybe this is where one of our dragons dies. And
Yeah,
this is where she snaps, and she doesn't torch all of King's Landing, but she kills like a solid street of people as she's going up to the crypt or like the castle.
yeah,
Like that would work better.
and she kills and she destroys the Iron Throne and the Keep and whatever. It essentially like loses the central power base of Westeros. And then you get to the point where like Danny dies or Danny like has this just overcomes with terrible guilt. Like I just murdered innocents for the sole reason of me being frustrated, and realizes that she is not. This is not the kingdom for her to rule, and either she dies by Jon killing her, or she flies off Drogon back to the west or east. And essentially, the houses come down and they're like, "Well, we have to pick a new king." There's no Iron Throne, and and everyone goes like, "Fuck it, no more connected kingdoms. We're going to do things our own way." And they go off and do their own. And the North is like, "The White Walkers are coming. We're going to get eaten by zombies," and no one cares. Like they just don't care. And they go back. The North tries to hold off the White Walkers, and they get pushed back, and they get pushed back, and they get pushed back. And then finally, like there's the remnants. We lose a few characters, and we get to the very end, and it's basically just like, well, we have two options. You know, we can either sail east, but that's where Daenerys is, and Daenerys doesn't like us because we didn't accept her as our queen. Or we can go west to the great unknown and see what that's like. And we have part of our characters go west, and we have part of our characters maybe go east. But the big thing is that like Westeros is fucked. It's gone.
Jesus.
It's like that whole system is just destroyed, and like going to the west is essentially like dying. Like you go off into the great unknown, you see what's out there.
So humanity. I mean, that's the ending that I think a lot of people would have liked, but it's not realistic because humanity loses super hard.
Yeah.
What they do in your ending is that they do beat the Night King after getting pushed back, but at the sacrifice of Bran. So they lose an important part of the world's magic, and it kind of
they lose their history and they lose their like roots.
Yeah,
the world
that works too. That's bittersweet. There's also the one I mentioned earlier. There's a whole lot of ways this could have been better.
It just to me the big point that has to come here is that there's a realization that the way things are working don't work. That's the big revelation, is that the Iron Throne is pointless. It's just a big power struggle that just leads to death, and it's better that nobody wins and someone sits on the throne, and that's a cycle that will keep happening because regardless of who sits on that throne, someone's going to want that throne. Like that's the whole story, is that if you have power, someone wants that power.
Let's talk about the finale now, the actual finale, and how it spits in that.
Okay. What actually happened?
What actually happened after Joe's lovely, kind of grim, but pretty cool, pretty thematic finish.
Yeah.
Well, what do we get? We get Daenerys being straight up Nazi evil. She doesn't show any remorse for what she did. She has an actual Nazi scene. She has
which was cool,
wonderful speech.
Yeah.
She sells the fuck out of that fake language.
Yeah.
Such a good actress.
Like I think that's fine. Like in terms of like what's happened, like that's a cool shot and scene.
It's a cool shot and scene. I wish she wasn't so immediately evil. You know, I wish. Actually, another way you could have fixed last episode is have her stop the burning midway through, and then now she has to live with guilt that she's not really a good leader, and she's kind of struggling with that this final episode. But no, she's just pure evil now. Just pure evil. Grey Worm is also now an angry, edgy boy. He was kind of interesting in the past, but now he's just a one-note angry boy. By the way, Grey Worm is the final villain of Game of Thrones. I just want to bring that up. if it hasn't sunk in with any listeners out there. Out of all characters, Grey Worm is the final villain. Jon has a scene with Tyrion where Jon's so fucking annoying this season, man.
It's really disappointing because if we stuck to this series and like they made this season longer and they really built up that love that John has for Danny and really shows that how much they kind of could have been together, it really would have been a hard, bittersweet ending for John.
Yes.
And
Instead, it was just like, shut up, John. She
yeah,
murdered millions, not millions, but
yeah.
almost a million.
Hmm.
And it's like, we don't get why you love her so much. We don't get why Tyrion trusts her so much. We didn't talk about Varys, but Varys was good that last episode that he was alive.
Yeah.
He got back to politicking, but then he didn't whisper quietly enough and
That kind of
died.
shows also that Varys, like with Varys doing all that stuff, that you can still have that politics system going on even during these seasons.
Yeah, they just didn't try. Like they were like they
Yeah.
did it with Varys. I thought they did a pretty good job, but yeah. So we don't get why Tyrion believed her for so long, but now Tyrion obviously was wrong, and he convinces Jon to kill her.
Yeah.
Um,
I think more of yeah, he convinces
Frustrating.
John that she's not the right one to rule. I don't know about killing her, but yeah.
No, because he's like, I know what I'm asking you to do is
Oh yeah.
difficult.
That's
Like,
true. That's true.
there's a very big kill implication here, and Jon kills her. This is one of the worst scenes of anything I've ever watched.
I both like and hate this.
I
I like
like
it
the
because I
beginning.
felt like it's very ironic that a dragon destroys the throne because it was forged by a dragon's fire. Like, like,
Get
like,
your geeky shit out of here. Let's talk about the fact that Drogon can understand themes and
right.
symbolism of things he's never seen. Like, does Drogon understand that the Iron Throne, is he smart enough to know that the words
That,
Iron
that,
Throne means
that's
Iron Throne?
yeah. That's the other thing that I was going to get to is I hate it because there's like we understand that Danny has this connection to the dragons. Like we
Hmm.
get that. Like and we can chalk that up to bloodline magic,
It's
voodoo
magic.
nonsense.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. But we've never seen a point in the show where the dragons showed some sort of like intellect to someone else.
Yes.
At least
Like,
from what I can remember.
at best, the dragon snarls at Jon like an angry, like, brother or father.
Yeah.
That's very natural. People like animals fuck all the
But
time, so like it's still animalistic. This
and that's like that
dragon.
would be the equivalent of a dog like kind of being on edge when they meet a new person at first. For some
What
dogs.
we
Not
got is that a dog um destroys like terrorism or something.
yeah.
Like a dog attacks a theme.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man! And he doesn't fight John for some reason. He's like,
I thought for certain Daenerys was gonna fucking roast Tyrion on the spot too.
yeah, he gets in prison so he can be plot relevant later.
Which I think is really dumb considering that she
She
just
just killed 100,000 plus people.
and like she took the Tarley's like, oh, you're not gonna surrender me? All right, I'll just burn him to death. Or Viserys like didn't even get in prison, was just taken out, marched outside, and burnt on the fucking coast.
It's plot armor.
Yeah,
Um, we've talked about plot armor before, especially in episode 3. Check out our previous videos.
yeah,
Um, this leads us to a jarring 2-week skip where you get one of the most baffling scenes in all of Game of Thrones
yeah.
and one of the worst scenes in the show.
Really cool scene too.
It, there's parts of it that like I chuckle and I laugh at, like are pretty fun, but conceptually the scene is bonkers because Grey Worm marches Tyrion out. He's like, no talking. Tyrion proceeds to give a very big speech. um, where he convinces everyone to abolish the monarchy system and instead have like a electoral college
Yeah,
style.
it's like, almost like a republic.
Yeah, but it's a republic where the people aren't electing the people that represent them, but there are still people making a vote for a leader.
Yeah,
So you take Dorne and the Iron Islands that have always been independent. By the way, the Iron Islands have always had democracy basically, and they laugh at the democracy joke, which
yeah.
is cool. Pretty consistent there. You take those two. You bring in Bran, who these people had never met, and everyone just accepts to be ruled by Bran, even though the Iron Islands and Dorne are super not okay with being ruled by a king of King's Landing, yet they accept this crippled child that they've never met. They don't understand what being the three-eyed raven means. We have no implication that they do.
Yeah.
God, and then Sansa backs out, and no one has a problem with that, and no one else backs out. Wouldn't
Like
it make more sense to have like?
and like, well, no, we're not going to be part of this anymore. But like at the same time, like they also are like island people, so they need trade and the connection to everyone else. But it's
But
just
they fought the system before, right? In previous
yeah,
seasons. What would have been nice is that four kingdoms break off and three stick together, and that's what Bran rules.
yeah.
That would have made more sense given all the characters there. Bran being king, I kind of liked how unpredictable it was. He doesn't really have a human connection with the people, but um, potentially this is the scariest king they could ever have because he's basically Big Brother.
Yeah, like you literally can't like sneak any shit to him because it's just like I see everything.
Thankfully, the show writers can't have Bran actually looking into anything relevant, so
Hmm.
he probably won't catch anything. So he probably still needs a master whisper to tell him where to look because he's basically internet. You got to know what to search.
Yeah.
Um, you get the resolution of John going to be a Night's Watch, even though there's nothing to watch at the wall anymore. It's
Well,
just an
I think that
exilement.
was more of they knew the Night's Watch didn't exist and didn't matter, but they needed an excuse to satisfy Grey Worm so Grey Worm wouldn't ask questions.
No, dude, it was not that deep.
You don't think
It
so?
was not that deep, bro.
You don't think so?
No. They just created a Night's Watch. What I told myself is that now that there's no Night King, they can explore further north,
Mhm.
and that's their purpose. But it's unclear. I
I
think they just
well,
created a Night's Watch without thinking about it.
I think there's that, or it's he joins the Wildlings because that's like where his heart is. Like he like being up north and being separated, and he becomes king beyond the wall, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
Blah.
yeah, yeah.
He becomes Jon Snow, aka Aegon Targaryen, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, King Beyond the Wall, King of Exile, some other
Queen
bullshit.
Slayer.
Queen Slayer.
um. What else? Arya's a pirate now. Yo, yo.
Yeah,
Um.
which is okay,
That's
whatever. They'll
okay.
bring back Macy
What's
Williams.
west of Westeros? Bran could find out in a second, but whatever.
I think Bran needs like a target location,
Oh,
but yeah,
does he?
maybe that's the thing too. Is they don't explore anything that Bran means. And, oh God,
It would have been really good, wouldn't it? Like there could have been some cool stuff exploring that. Like
because so uh, so there's one theme that's in the books. It's really subtle, and you really, unless you're kind of looking for it, it can really sneak past you. But the one of the big themes in the books is the difference between what actually happens and what really happened, and how like the common folks see that and understand
hmm
that the people above know what actually happened, but the people below them are only told the stories of what happened.
yeah,
And
and
then
they
the
they do
show,
bring up that like stories are a big deal, but they don't really do anything with that
yeah,
idea.
that's brought up at the very end of the episode of the last season, and it's just like, but that's the whole point of that's one of the other themes of the books, is that because one of the big ones I can think of right off the bat is there's the story about Ned Stark killing uh, the Day Knight or something, the guy that can wield two swords.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and it kind of solidified that Ned Stark is a complete badass. But then we find out that no, Ned Stark actually was going to lose, and then one of his like lieutenants stabbed the other guy in the back and let Ned get the win, essentially.
Yeah, stuff like
So
I've heard of stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, Bran could have tied into that, but he was useless. Can't
yeah,
spend too much time on Bran.
and so
Um,
like and it's never used, especially because when you introduce Bran and Bran can literally see what actually happens for everything. You have to.
you
It's just
you
it's
have to ride around. You have to address it.
yeah.
They just ignore
It's
it.
such an interesting theme because that's how you control the populace, and that's how you get people to like accept your rule. You know, and that's what Tyrion was getting at. Was like you need someone that has a good enough story that people will be like, "Oh man, I love this guy. I trust him," and you have to give that to
I
people.
think you're being too smart for it again. Like the dialogue could be construed that way, but I don't think they thought that hard about it.
No, like Tyrion says that. Like he literally flat out says that like people will only rule someone with a good story. That's why Robert Baratheon got the throne. He's the guy that won the war, so they gave him the throne.
That's such a rushed message. Like I barely
Oh
caught
no, trust me, Willer, I get it.
that. um,
Because and you have those other scenes too where at Joffrey's wedding they reenact the War of the
yeah,
King.
that was a really good one.
and then later when Arya is like gonna kill the theater lady, they reenact Joffrey's death and everything else afterwards.
Hmm.
So like there are glimpses into that theme that like facts are being construed and they're unreliable from people above you. Like that's a theme about social structure essentially.
Yeah.
Um, but it's never talked about or never like really kind of
It's never
fleshed out.
explored or fleshed.
Yeah.
I think the last one we haven't covered is Sansa's Queen. Good. She didn't do much last season, but she still probably ended up as my favorite character.
Mm-hmm. And in context of what we got, it's like okay, yeah. I mean, sure, she essentially got everything that her brother was striving for,
But she actually wanted and actually was better at it than him. So
it really kind of, and that was also Ned's theme too. Is that Ned was part of the Seven Kingdoms and he ruled the North as like a vassal, but at the same time, it's like I don't want to get involved. I just want to deal with my own shit here. Like that's another big theme is dealing with your own shit. Yeah.
Lastly, you got the small council scene. I like that scene. Even Braun, it doesn't make sense for Braun to be there, and he was kind of shitty in season 8 in general. But I still like Braun.
And Braun also has no money. Like,
it's fine. Under the Bran regime, Braun can't get away with anything. So,
they made a new currency.
I like Brienne. Brienne was great. She wrote in the book that. And then Jaime fucked Brienne, and she was the best in bed ever. The end.
So I don't like Brienne and Jaime's romance. I feel that's very ham-fisted. Like it just, to me, the whole arc is Jaime learning that there is someone better at being a knight than him. Like that's kind of the whole arc.
But I also saw it as Jaime learning that he can love someone who's not Cersei. So I think it goes both ways.
Maybe, but I don't like that as much as
it's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Episode that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be because I set the bar real low.
Yeah.
At least I was surprised by things.
I said like just like I'm both satisfied and disappointed in the ultimate conclusion of the show because it feels like really the climax of the show happens when Dany gets stabbed and everything else kind of tumbles off after that
and is paced really weirdly.
Yeah
and
I would have also really liked and it would have been really overly fantasy tropey, I know, but it just would have been enjoyable where we have this kind of like after moment where they kind of explain what happens after Bran rules and what that means for the rest of the world.
Yeah, because it's such an interesting concept. See, the problem with Bran ruling is that it's an interesting concept we'll never get to see anything of.
Right, that's why I'm saying you need that epilogue dialogue where, like, Sam is, like, talking about it or something where it's, like, Bran ended up ruling
the kingdom. And then Bran the Broken spied on everyone, and everyone was too afraid to do anything.
Yeah, or just something in general. Something that, like, because the whole point of Game of Thrones is it was coming to a point. Like, there was a reason why these events took place and why you had to tell all these events, like How I Met Your Mother, to once to pull from another show that had a terrible ending. The whole point of that show being for so long, and what happens is there's a reason for all these events to happen, and you have to know all these events because it gives you context for what ultimately happens in the end. You know what I'm saying?
They still kind of explain that, but whatever. That's a different show.
But what I'm saying is that like the show ends, but it doesn't end with kind of telling you like this is what this series of events meant for the entirety of the kingdom, like or the world. Like, why was this story significant relative to the rest of the history? Like why didn't we learn about why did we focus on this section of history of Westeros and not the section of the Targaryens being overthrown? That's the question you need to answer by the end of the show.
I agree.
In a fantasy novel. Like same with Lord of the Rings. Like, why did we talk about the Lord of the Rings part of it and not, the Last Alliance part of that world? But yeah.
Game of Thrones, one of the best shows of all time, 3.5 out of 5.
I agree with you, Willer. I give it like a 3.5 out of 5. It's just You had
Man,
when you have a show to go on for so long, you have to stick that landing.
yeah, because you've invested so much time. Also,
Mhm.
it really hurts when you started off so strong and you ended off so weak.
Yeah.
It leaves a bad image.
hmm
Um,
Yeah. Especially when your writers and producers are like, nah, we can finish the show in 7 or 14 awesome episodes that are hour and a half to 2 hours long. You're like, great, that sounds amazing. Nah.
David and Dan just kind of forgot how to write.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got anything else to say, Joe?
Well,
I'm good for Game of Thrones for the rest of my life now.
I
Until
agree. I think
until Bradley jumps on.
if Winds of Winter, if the series gets concluded, like fiction wise, like literature
Hmm.
wise, I will probably read the series.
I'll tell you what, I like these characters so much, even though the book versions won't be the ones that I know and love. But if it gets finished, I might go ahead and read it as well.
But the only problem with that is that like each book is like 800 pages long.
You know what? I won't read it.
Yeah.
I'll get some good summaries from you.
But I think that's kind of like the one thing I'm looking forward to is that there's another comparison point for because like to give you an example like what's so different like Brienne's dead in the
The
books.
fuck?
Yeah, like Catelyn Stark like it's like you didn't get my daughters back to me. It's like I couldn't do it. They went off and did their own thing and it just fucking kills her.
Wow, Catelyn sucks. You're right, Joe. You were right
Yeah.
all along. Maybe this is why you hated her so much.
Um but
Uh,
yeah, there's
but
just
yeah,
I'm very interested in this but and I think like ultimately the events that happen outline bullet point will happen in the books.
yes.
Like like King's Landing will be burned by Daenerys. The White Walkers will come.
And I guess they'll get beaten before Daenerys.
I think that's told out of order. Like I feel like
I
Daenerys
hope
will happen
so.
before the White Walkers.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, because yeah.
Yeah,
But who knows?
decent show.
You know, maybe fucking it just turned into a porn parody of itself in the last book, and you're just left with that.
Game of Bones. Wee woo, wee woo.
All right.